I would like to share a quick letter. Just a note, Camp Drum, this big Union Army base, was named after Richard Drum, who was a captain at the beginning of the war, and he was a brigadier general by the end of the war. And a lot of high-ranking military officers or politicians who were loyal to the Union would get military bases named after them, and that practice continued on the West Coast. So this base was named after Colonel Drum, General Drum. However, I would like to share the contents of a letter that I found, which was absolutely fascinating. This is a letter from Captain John Davidson, who was a captain in the 1st U.S. Cavalry, so he was a federal regular. And this is addressed to Captain Richard Drum, who was at Camp Fitzgerald in September of 1861. Now, Camp Fitzgerald was a temporary Union Army camp that was in downtown Los Angeles. The modern day location would be between 2nd and 3rd Street. And this letter from Captain Davidson says, Captain, the information given you in my letter of the 9th has received much corroboration within the last few days. Judge Terry is said to be at the head of the secession organization. Secret nightly meetings are reported to me to be held by armed men at the Monte, 12 miles from Los Angeles. When he says the Monte, he's talking about the city of El Monte. With regard to the last I've sent out and will continue to do so until something most positive is learned by me, nightly patrols of intelligent non-commissioned officers and 1 or 2 men for the purpose of ascertaining where and by whom these meetings are held, and if possible, their object. Now, he mentioned that Judge Terry is the head of the secessionist organization at El Monte. Judge Terry is Judge David Terry, who was the Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court until 1859, when he resigned shortly before a duel that he knew was probably going to kill his career. And in this duel, the Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court, David Terry, shot and killed David Broderick, who was California's U.S. Senator. Broderick was a Northern Democrat and Terry was a Southern Democrat. And it's really interesting that Captain Davidson has identified Judge Terry as the head of the secessionist organization in El Monte. Mind you, this was in September of 1861. So Richard Drum is still a captain, and Camp Drum does not exist yet. It hasn't been established. 2 years later, Judge Terry will end up in Texas. He will join his brother's regiment, the 8th Texas Cavalry Regiment, Terry's Texas Rangers. And then the following year, Judge Terry will get command of the troops in West Texas, including the remnants of the Arizona Brigade. So the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Texas Arizona, who were serving in different places, one of which was in Arkansas for a short time and did serve fight in the Battle of Poison Springs. And that is some absolutely fascinating information. And the 2 main hotspots for secessionist activity in Southern California were El Monte and San Bernardino. There was a lot of activity in town at the beginning of the war, but as the Union Army moved men to counter the secessionist threat and basically help keep Southern California in the Union, the secessionists took their operations and their schemings up into the San Bernardino Mountains, up to the point of there were a couple of hundred guys who were regularly doing militia training for the Confederate Reverse Underground Railroad, wherein citizens of California were leaving California through the southern part in order to escape to Texas and join the Confederate Army.